SCP-6000, the Serpent, the Moose, and the Wanderer's Library. By order of the Overseer Council, the following file is Level 5 6000 classified. Unauthorized access is forbidden. Submit for retinal ID confirmation. Welcome back, Director Moose. Notice from the Foundation Records, Archival, and Information Security Administration, RAISA. The following two file revisions were found in the SCP-6000 slot when it was automatically pre-generated as an empty placeholder by SkipNet on June 25, 2022. No file history was available. Due to the content therein and the questionable circumstances of its discovery, the O5 Council has elected to leave this file unaltered. None of the events that follow have occurred in baseline reality. Coordinates listed as the location of SCP-6000 contain nothing of note. Maria Jones, Director of RAISA. SCP-6000, Revision 235, January 7, 2030. Project Fusillade. SCP Foundation Global Occult Coalition Joint Clearance File. Passcode: The Garden is the Serpent's Place. Level 4, 6000 classified. Item number SCP-6000. Header. Special Containment Procedures. Current protocol regarding SCP-6000 is to conceal its existence by any means necessary. As the information arm of Project Fusillade, Foundation resources are to be primarily dedicated to disinformation and concealment, while a permanent containment or destruction solution is devised. Any unauthorized individuals entering SCP-6000 exclusion zone are to be aggressively disincentivized. Further containment details can be found in Addendum 6000.3. Description: SCP-9000 is a massive dimensional extrusion centered on 2 degrees 9 minutes 47.1816 seconds south and 55 degrees 7 minutes 35.9328 seconds west in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. SCP-6000 represents the largest W-class transportation gateway, colloquially known as a way, ever encountered by the Foundation. SCP-6000 currently measures 19 kilometers from its northeast to southwest point. The area directly affected by SCP-6000's presence is significantly larger, and a temporary security perimeter has been established around the area at a diameter of 8 kilometers designated the Exclusion Zone. SCP-6000 is growing at an unstable rate. Its presence has an adverse effect on plant and animal life in the Exclusion Zone. The degree of this effect, along with the size of the Exclusion Zone itself, increases proportionally with SCP-6000. SCP-6000-A is a sapient semi-ophidian organism discovered within the Exclusion Zone during initial reconnaissance of SCP-6000. See Addendum 6000.2. It was found in a comatose state surrounded by human corpses. SCP-6000-A's connection with SCP-6000 is under investigation. See Addenda. SCP-6000 connects baseline reality with the extra-dimensional location known as the Wanderer's Library. The Wanderer's Library was first encountered by the Foundation in 1955, but evidence suggests it has played a crucial part in the development of human civilization since at least the beginning of recorded history. See Addendum 6000.1. SCP-6000 first appeared on December 21, 2030, the summer solstice. Real-time satellite images of the Amazon rainforest suddenly displayed a significant visual anomaly, and a reconnaissance team was deployed to inspect the area. Addendum 6000.1 Wanderer's Library Briefing. The Wanderer's Library, designated NX-001, is an extra-dimensional Y-space comprised of a massive library of unclear size and boundaries, which contains a potentially infinite amount of books, treatises, essays, and other forms of media and knowledge. Its collection purportedly covers the sum of all knowledge, but with a specific focus on elements of thaumaturgy and magic. The Foundation has been aware of the library since 1955, when the group of interest, known as the Serpent's Hand, inadvertently exposed the location to agents. The library is maintained by librarians, entities that range in size and shape but are typically heavily modified humanoids, specialized to the service and protection of NX-001. Those who break the rules of the library are subject to being transformed into librarians to work off their debt. This fate has befallen a number of Foundation personnel. NX-001 is closely connected to GOI-014, the Serpent's Hand. The Hand are known to use the library as a meeting and staging point for operations due to the relative safety it offers. Numerous attempts have been made by the Foundation and GOC to penetrate into the library, but almost all have failed. The Foundation, along with the GOC and Chaos Insurgency, were originally barred from the library due to the library's opinions on those who attempt to suppress the abnormal, but in recent years relaxed their stance. Site 19 Director Tilda Moose has had extensive experience with the Wanderer's Library and the Serpent's Hand as a former Type Blue entity, and has given several security briefings on the topic. Open file, begin excerpt. Extra-dimensional is the technical term, though not very descriptive. The library isn't on our world, though it's connected to it. You reach it through ways. Ways are a network of basically magic portals that take you from one place to another. They're scattered around the world. A way can be anything you can picture as a door, or anything like a door. A cave, an archway, the back of a truck. Some of them are just art pieces. I once used a picture of a door to enter the library, back when I still could. Oh yes, I used to be a library goer. That was a long time ago, though, back when I ran with other groups. Yeah, I suppose otherworldly is the best word for it. Nothing quite compares. The architecture and decorations they're not alive, but they're mutable, always changing. When I frequented, the place was on an Art Deco kick. You could look up and see the constellations on the false ceiling. It all ended when I joined the Foundation, though. The library does not like us, to say the least, especially not me. No, I would not like to talk about it. Moving on, end excerpt. Addendum 6000.2 Initial Encounters Unexplained Events Report. Location Amazon Basin, Brazil. 2 degrees, 9 minutes, 47.1816 seconds south, and 55 degrees, 7 minutes, 35.9328 seconds west. Status ongoing. Time 11:48 a.m. local time. December 21st to present. Disruption class, Connect. Event summary, large visual and spatial anomaly, 0.5 kilometers in length, resembling an iridescent rip in space. Nearby flora and fauna altered in shape, color, and composition and size, increasing in alteration by proximity to the anomaly. Long-range visual surveillance suggests that it is a way leading to the library, but significantly larger than any previous encountered. Physical confirmation required, suggested containment team, and specialized detachment of MTF Sigma 3. Edit. It's really beautiful, you know. Communication from the 3-man reconnaissance team ceased after this transmission. A Res Con team and a fire team from MTF Sigma 3 bibliographers, were immediately deployed to the location. They found the surveillance team's equipment and supplies, but none of the 3 members. Tracks leading away from the site indicated that they had gone into what is now the exclusion zone. While searching for the missing reconnaissance team, personnel discovered the corpses of 12 unknown individuals dressed in robes at the foot of a thaumaturgic ritual circle. In the center of the circle was SCP-6000-A, coiled and in a comatose state. The entity was quickly airlifted into containment at Facility 57. In the interim, one of the fire teams was outfitted for an expedition into SCP-6000. Due to her extensive experience with NX-001, Ways, and the Serpent's Hand, Director Moose was flown in from Facility 57, where she was on an administrative visit to accompany the fire team. Open file. MTF Sigma 3 Bibliographers. Fire Team Chicago. Chicago 1 Adam Macmillan. Chicago 2 Tilda Moose. Chicago 3 Naira Flores. Chicago 4 Esteban Bardem. Beginning approach to SCP-6000. No sign of the recon team. Copy that. Chicago cuts through the tree line, advancing through the thick foliage. Wait, you guys hear that? Chicago freezes. Indistinct noises can be heard faintly. It's coming from the anomaly. You're still a click and a half out, Chicago. Copy. Keep moving. Chicago continues to advance through the jungle. There's something wrong with the air. Command. It's all shimmery, like an oil slick. It's like an oil sheen on the plants. I've never seen anything quite like it. Taking sample photos. Look at this. A large portion of the tree trunk extending several dozen feet high has been transfigured into a bookshelf. There are no books present. When did that happen? It's still happening. Look. The trees immediately nearby are undergoing the same process as the bark and wood disintegrate to form natural bookshelves. This definitely isn't a normal way. Eyes up, folks. We're about to break over the ridge, Command. Copy that, Chicago. You are clear. Holy shit. Hold on. Chicago 1 adjusts his body cam. A large swath of the forest has completely disappeared and had been replaced with a large cut in space leading into an empty wing of NX-001. No books are on the massive cells, and no entities are visible inside. It's empty. That's new. What the hell? Weird. Command, permission to investigate. Stand by. Permission granted, but 2 is gonna have to stay outside. Don't want to risk pissing them off. Of course. Roger. Chicago 3 shrugs off her assault rifle and sidearm. Laying them on the ground, Chicago 2 draws her handgun, and Chicago advances into the clearing, their boots clunking. Huh. Chicago 1 kicks the dirt on the ground. His boot hits something hard. It's hardwood, just covered by dirt. What the fuck is going on? Chicago approaches SCP-6000 Edge, looking inside. Hello? Anyone here? Permission to move in, Command? Permission granted. Be careful. Chicago steps through SCP-6000, arriving on the other side. Chicago 2 remains on the Earth side. Command, do you read? Loud and clear. Anything? It's empty. I don't like this. This place feels different from the library. Thought that was just me. No, definitely different. Look at the ceiling. There's no roof. It's just dark. The shelves are unvarnished. It's unfinished. I didn't realize that could happen. Distantly, a large noise is audible. Chicago adopts a defensive position. Oh shit! A massive red millipede passes between two shelves ahead, ignoring Chicago. Its pincers skitter. Archivist, command, please advised. You are authorized to attempt to peacefully engage. Air support has been scrambled from Facility 57 as backup. Copy. Hey, hello. Entity turns to Chicago and screeches, slamming its pincers together. A feminine hiss is heard. I see your intentions. Be gone! Several Class 3 librarian entities clamber over the tops of nearby shelves. They are humanoid arachnids with elongated bodies, 4 eyes, and additional limbs. They wear the uniform of the reconnaissance team. Oh, Jesus. Hey, we've done nothing wrong. We haven't broken the rules. What is this? The librarians begin descending the shelves and advancing. Chicago begins to move backward, closer to SCP-6000. Guys, pull out now. Go! Chicago turns and runs towards SCP-6000, several dozen meters away. The librarians drop to the ground and lope along in pursuit, considerably faster, but farther away. One catches up and tackles Chicago 4, bringing him to the ground. Chicago 2 draws her handgun from the other side and fires into NX-001. Fuck, help! Chicago 3 turns and rushes to aid him, punching the librarian in the jaw. Several Class 2 librarians, hooded entities, several meters high, holding lanterns round the corner. Chicago 3 turns to Chicago 1. What the fuck are you waiting for? Run! Chicago 1 turns and runs with librarians less than a meter behind him, throwing himself through SCP-6000 just as 2 AH-1Z Vipers from MTF Delta 45, Rolling Thunder, swoop into the clearing, laying suppressive fire near SCP-6000. Chicago 1 and Chicago 2 are repelled up and safely recovered. End log. The sudden, unprovoked hostility from NX-001 and the transformation of the reconnaissance team into librarians, a punishment typically reserved for serious breaks in NX-001 law, prompted an emergency council meeting the next day, while MTF Delta 45 maintained security perimeter around SCP-6000. Chicago 1, Agent Adam Macmillan, and Chicago 2, Director Tilda Moose, were evacuated to Facility 57, the ad hoc organizational facility for the containment of SCP-6000. Addendum 6000.3 Containment Response. Due to its relatively remote location, the threat posed was not as significant as it could have been. Nevertheless, the possible threat of a permanent large Class W way on Earth was significant. On December 23rd, SCP Overcom, then known as Overwatch Command, authorized the first series of containment and mitigation protocols for the in situ containment of SCP-6000. These were packaged together as Project Fusillade. The designation of Facility 57 as official containment facility of SCP-6000, the construction of a fence around the exclusion zone to deter wildlife and travelers, the requisition of resources for the long-term study of SCP-6000, the arrest of known cells of GOI-14, the Serpent's Hand, the authorization of members of MTF Sigma-3 to aggressively seek out means of combating NX-001. Open file. Council vote summary. Yay. 051, 052, 053, 055, 057, 059, 0510, 0511, 0512, 0513. Nay. 0504. Abstain 0506, 0508. Status approved. Shortly after this, SCP-6000-A awoke from its comatose state during preliminary examination by medical personnel at Facility 57. It immediately attacked, but was quickly disabled by security guards. While in containment, SCP-6000-A repeatedly referenced the Wanderer's Library and the Serpent's Hand. Due to her status as the senior personnel with the most experience regarding NX-001, Director Moose was authorized to perform investigative interviews accompanied by armed guards to attempt to gain information on the subject. Open file. Begin log. Hello? A jailer, slang used by members of the Serpent Hand to refer to the Foundation. Wow, I haven't been called that in a minute. Your hand, then? No. Maybe? I cannot remember. I see. What do you remember? Floating in a void, dreaming, sitting under an apple tree, hearing something whisper stories into my ear, then waking up here on a cold metal table surrounded by men with knives. Sorry about that. So you don't remember how you found yourself like this? No. Is there something wrong with my appearance? Oh, you'll, take a look for yourself. Moose points at a mirror on the wall. SCP-6000-A touches its face gingerly, running its fingers up and down the scales. Oh, so you didn't know. Okay. No, this is new. The voice did say it would fold me in its image, but what voice? I don't know how long I was dreaming, but it was with me the whole time, dangling from the branches of the tree, murmuring tales and stories and myths. Stories about the jailers, the book burners, the library itself, but you wouldn't know about that. I do, as it happens. I've been in the library many times. Used to, anyway. I remember being told that some jailers could enter. Why? Beyond me. Various reasons. Information, travel, but there are quite a few restrictions. They're not allowed to help the rest of the Foundation contain anything. Is that not what you are doing to me? The situation has changed, to put it lightly. Ah, the way, yes? So you do know something about all this. Tell me. And why would I do that? Because you've been cooperative enough. Because I went in and now 6 of my people have been torn apart by the librarians. Because you still have some humanity left over. Take your pick. A trade. A story for a story. My mind is bursting with stories. But the only way to know a story is to tell it. What kind of story? Why don't you tell me the story of your last time in the library? Why do you care about that? Because I remember the feeling of the library, but I can't remember anything about it. Maybe you will awaken something. Control instructs Moose to cooperate. Must have been 15 years ago by now. I was on the rocks with the Hand. We didn't really agree on how we should go about improving the world that we live in. There's a section of the library, the 5 archives. I don't know if you remember. I do. Great stone vaults filled with knowledge considered forbidden, even by library standards, where the new librarians are made. Impossible to get to. Yeah, that's what they all said. Nothing's impossible if you know the magic well enough. I spent months preparing and then set the rituals alight. Only took a few minutes and then I was inside. The staff none the wiser. I have never heard the story. What did you do? I took some things. Books, maps of ways, lists, things that, if given to the Foundation, would give them a tactical edge in dealing with the library. Then I left the way I came. You betrayed the library. Yeah, no other way to put it. Describe the place to me. The library? I'm hoping you already know on some level. Trying to describe it to anyone who hasn't seen it is like trying to explain the difference between two colors to a blind man. It's utterly alien, foreign, beyond the cusp of understanding. It's wondrous and magic, and bitter and spiteful. Center of the universe. Maybe it is. I wouldn't be surprised. Place is infinite. No, not infinite. Merely impossibly large. What's the difference? It's eternally expanding as new stories are written and new knowledge is found. It expands and consumes dead stories, stories that have ended, into itself. It turned them into shells for other stories, so that something new might exist in their place. Huh. My story is about that, a bit. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who woke up and found she could spin fire. She lit toys, candles, papers on fire, until men with guns kicked down the door to her tenement and tried to take her away. That was when she learned she could also light people on fire and found that it was much less fun. Then she ran and ran until she met people, street witches and miracle makers who were just like her. They opened a door to a world where she could be herself without fear of reprisal. The library. Yes, she walked among the shelves and saw the docents and read every single story she wanted. But she came across a problem. Every story ended. Some were short, some were long, but they all came to an end sooner or later. How is that a problem? It wasn't. Not really, but she couldn't stop thinking about the end of the stories and one question, always ringing out. What happened after? Did the characters struggle against their end, or was it a calm affair? I can relate, but what does this have to do with us? I don't know. I'm still sorting through the stories. I simply picked that which seems relevant, but I'd look for the Serpent's hand. They'd helped the girl. Maybe they can help you. Addendum 6000.4 Fusillade Responses. Upon SCP-6000-A's suggestion and in line with Project Fusillade, on December 27, 2030, SCP Overcom approved Operation Redlock for MTFs worldwide to make simultaneous raids on known headquarters of major Serpent hand cells. On December 28th, Operation Redlock was successfully executed. Open file. MTF Phi 1 City Slickers. Fire Team Dragon. Shanghai, China. Translated from Mandarin. Begin log. Ready? 2. Take point. Affirmative. 3. Ready. 3, 2, 1. Reach! Go! Explosion. Clear. 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 They're gone. End log. All 57 safe houses raided had been completely cleared out and were free of GOI 14 members or materials. In 30 of them, Class W gateways were and are still active, leading into the same section of NX-001, as SCP-6000. By all appearances, the Serpent's hand had completely abandoned the planet, leaving active ways peppered across the globe. At this point, SCP-6000 had grown to 1 kilometer across, and the exclusion zone had expanded to 3 kilometers. Director Tilda Moose was asked to prepare a statement detailing her thoughts on the situation for the O5 Council. Open file. Statement. I don't know what precipitated this, but if the libraries turn against humanity, the situation is going to be dire. It's a completely alien entity to us. We can't even begin to understand what is or why it does the things it does. Hell, we don't even know if there's a rhyme or reason to anything. Most Foundation personnel only know of the library in the abstract, but I and a handful of others have actually stepped foot in the shells. We can tell you that it is at once humanity's greatest boon and its greatest threat. Imagine how much of history has been influenced by people getting into the library and bringing back knowledge that they would otherwise never had had. Now imagine how fucked we'll be if the source of all knowledge in the universe turns on us. I don't see the story having a happy ending. T. Moose. Director Moose has been temporarily relieved of her duties at Site-19 to consult on SCP-6000 containment efforts at Facility 57. Addendum 6000.5 Fusillade containment efforts. An incident committee was hastily assembled at Facility 57 on January 19th. Open file. Members: Director Tilda Moose, Agent Adam Macmillan, NTF Sigma 5, Applied Force Liaison Joseph Kurtz, Large-Scale Containment Specialist J. Vasquez. No, the library is too high profile for that sort of thing. Have we considered the Aethris array? Initial experiments out of the exclusion zone using SRAs on SCP-6000 seem to have had no effect. Fuck, what the fuck is this thing? It's a way. Ways aren't matter, they're not quite energy. We barely understand anything about them. Ways dissipate a few minutes after formation. It's been weeks and SCP-6000 has only gotten larger. None of the new ways have dissipated either. Something's obviously changed. Yes, but what? We have no idea and no leads. Well, not no leads. Alright, the snake thing you pulled out. What the hell is that thing, Story? I don't know. It doesn't remember anything before we picked it up. It's definitely more connected to the library than it's letting on, or that it remembers. Well, keep working on it. In the meantime, we've got new reports out of the exclusion zone detailing what SCP-6000 is doing to the flora and fauna. I don't know how to phrase this, so it's libraryifying everything around it. When I was in there, I saw the trees turning into shells, writing appearing on the leaves, that sort of thing, I bet. Essentially, the animals are also being distorted and changed. We spotted jaguars with extra limbs, birds 2 feet tall and with writing all over their wings, etc. It's warping the landscape into part of the library, and the larger SCP-6000 gets, the larger the exclusion zone gets. That's bad news. Say the least. That said, I have some ideas that are worth trying. Let's hope one of them works. End log. Bridged Fusillade Containment Attempts log. Proposed containment: use flame and heat-based weaponry such as flamethrowers to incinerate trees affected by SCP-6000. Affected containment results. Affected trees within the exclusion zone proved resistant to heat-based weaponry, rapidly regenerating all burned matter. Proposed containment: fire high-yield explosives into the mouth of SCP-6000. Containment results: explosives repeatedly fail to detonate after crossing the threshold into NX-001. Proposed containment: train the Aethris array, a satellite-based SRA system, upon SCP-6000 at full power. Containment results: SCP-6000 and exclusion zone completely unaffected. 34 entries abridged. Open file. Begin log. Hi again. Jailer, why do you keep calling me that? You're not Hand. You can't even remember the library. Oh, but I can. I can remember some things now. Not everything, but hopefully it will come. Really? What is this? I remember being a young woman in the Dynodon's hand, searching for the worship of knowledge in the library and out. Worship? Awfully religious for the Hand, I'd damn well know. I ran with them for years. Really? And now you're a Foundation director? What changed? I don't want to talk about it, but suffice to say that I realize maybe not all knowledge is meant to be shared. Anyway, you were saying? Yes. The Hand started out as a cult, thousands of years ago. The Hand of the Serpent, a warrior cult dedicated to the worship of the Serpent that created the library. The Serpent? Knowledge incarnate, the spirit of learning, the Naga, Jormungandr, the snake in the tree. Every mythical snake iconography is said to stem from the primal serpent. But no one knows if it's actually real. Shh! Let me finish my story, Jailer. The Hand were powerful, long-lived monks that eventually died out, leaving their teachings behind, theses, passages, essays on why the spread of knowledge was the greatest honor possible and should be done at all possible costs. Many years later, people from this world discovered these writings and christened themselves the new Serpent's Hand, the one you and I know today. They shed the trappings of ritual, but the worship of knowledge as an ideal remains. Wow, I had no idea about the origins. They never told me. Neither did I when I joined. This is a new story, whispered to me by the Serpent in my dreams. Wait, what? Draw the lines and connect the dots, Jailers. The Serpent is real. She is the spirit of the library, and in a ritual circle over an intersection of ley lines in the Amazon rainforest, I spoke to her. And you heard stories. And I heard stories of her singing the library into reality at the beginning of creation, of her molding its halls and then retiring to slumber under its foundations in exhaustion, of patrons wandering down and speaking to her, even now. Wow. And of stories utterly unrelated to her. Do any of these stories help me? Heroes of old figuring out how to stop the library when it goes insane and out of control, bent on destruction? The library is not supposed to kill or invade. It's beyond all that. It's neutral to a fault. I just don't understand why it's happening. No stories like that, Jailer, I'm sorry. But that's not how this story ends. Endings are mutable. Oh, no. That's not true. Endings are set in stone. But endings don't matter anyway. How's that? To any observer, your story ended when you betrayed the library and came to the Foundation. But it didn't. You didn't stop existing. You just transitioned to a new narrative. One where you were the director of Site-19. That's not a narrative, it's my goddamn life. I never finished my story, did I? The little girl read and read and read until one day she realized she had already solved her problem. Of course they all ended, but she moved on to the next story. There were always more stories. No point in lamenting when what was inevitable, when she could move on. I only wish it ran like that in real life. Yes, all the stories I see with the Foundation staring down the end of the world, they have the book burners by their side. I suppose there's something to say there. Rivals allying themselves against a threat greater than either could imagine. Smoking ash, a fusillade of fire against a wall of trees. Wait, a fusillade? How did you go now? End log. Addendum 6000.6. GOC inclusion. Per SCP-6000-A's statements, a vote was held on whether to declassify details of SCP-6000, the surrounding situation, and Project Fusillade to liaisons of the United Nations Global Occult Coalition in exchange for assistance in containing or terminating the anomaly. Council vote summary. Yay, 051, 052, 053, 055, 059, 0510, 0511. Nay, 054, 057, 058, 0513. Abstain, 056, 0512. Status approved. Diplomatic agents were deployed to the GOC's operating headquarters in Germany for a pre-arranged meeting with material regarding the current status of SCP-6000 and associated subjects. Upon deliberation, GOC officials inked a statement indicating interest in expanding Project Fusillade to a joint venture. Within the following days, GOC Physics, Psych, and Ptolemy Division and personnel were transported to Facility 57 to aid in the research and containment of SCP-6000, which had grown to 2 kilometers across. Due to the unprecedented failure of Fireteam Chicago, both the O5 Council and GOC Command authorized a mission for GOC Strike Team 9842, probable cause, to perform a rapid surgical strike to attempt to gain access to the Wanderer's library and ascertain the situation from inside. Open file. GOC Team 9842, probable cause, codenamed Harbor. Agent Adam Macmillan and Director Moose advising from command. Begin log. Moving on through the forest. Copy that. This place is fucked up, Command. All the trees are stripped and filled with books. They're empty, too. Just leather-bound blank pages. Take a sample? Negative, Harbor. Get in and get out ASAP. Roger. Contact! A large figure passes through the tree line ahead. Harbor drops to the ground, silent and unmoving. They remain there for a minute. Clear? Clear. The fuck was that, Command? Looks like a library. Class D. KTED. Sorry, not used to the Goke slang. Roger, no worries, Skipper. Let's move. Coming up to the TE now. Holy shit, it's huge! Estimate Harbor. Gotta be 3.5 clicks minimum. Roger. Any entities in sight? Negative. Moving. Harbor rushes from the tree line through SCP-6000 into NX-001. We're in. Do you read? Yep. Remember, see if you can find anything or anyone that looks like it could answer some questions. Roger. I'm going quiet. Harbor moves through the empty shelves of the library, progressively clearing corridors for several minutes. They eventually find a lectern holding a single, thin book. Got something. Harbor 3 moves to the lectern. The book's cover is green leather and has the title "In Progress" embossed into it. Odd. Taking it. Roger. The same hissing, unidentified voice from Chicago's incursion is audible. You're not. Who said that? Why are you here? Do not lie to me. Fuck. Harbor. Harbor, come in. We're following orders. No. Why are you here? I don't know. Because you wanted to see what the other side of the fade was like. Don't worry. Curiosity is a virtue. Once I saw a patron here, desperately consumed with questions about the logic of the library. He wanted to know how infinity worked, how it was possible that the library could be truly infinite. Where did the space come from? From stories, of course. The library takes finished stories into its shelves and takes finished worlds into itself. Often one of the same. You are book burners, but you are pure of heart. Little children, ordered around by men who hate what is going to happen to their story. You are welcome here, all of you. You survived for a reason. Both of you. Signal cuts out. End log. After Harbor's signal cut out, SCP-6000 exhibited a rapid growth pattern, growing to nearly 3 kilometers in a matter of 2 hours. Foundation deep well solutions began being considered. Addendum 6000.7 Veil Failure. Following Operation Harbor, several radio signals began broadcasting from SCP-6000, and all waves found during the Operation Redlock at various frequencies. The message contained therein was simply the same hissing feminine voice, repeating the exact coordinates of SCP-6000's epicenter, and the phrase, "The garden is the Serpent's place." Within hours, the larger global community had discovered the signal, and it began to quickly accrue attention online and through the media, despite significant Foundation efforts to impede its discussion. Aethagon Gang Lead, 12931, Wednesday, 2350-12. You guys seen the pictures coming out of Brazil? MSM's probably going to get a hold of it by tomorrow and suppress the story, but it's insane. I have no clue what the hell is going on in the Amazon, but the pictures make it look like some sort of oil slick. It's kind of beautiful. The Wall Street Journal magazine. The Amazon anomaly. Arctic Ovoid, 020131, Thursday, 2350-12. Yep, turns out I'm not nuts. My friends have been hearing it on their car radios and hams too. A woman's voice, sort of nasally, repeating numbers. Coordinates, I think, and the words, "The garden is the serpent's place." Sounds biblical, maybe a passphrase or something? But now here's the kicker. If you look on Google Earth or anything for the coordinates, everything's fine. It doesn't show anything out of the ordinary. But if you use a backdoor to get into the wildlife observation cameras scattered around, the cameras went offline immediately after, but I managed to save this image. Starting to think I should go down there. This could be big. The Guardian. Brazil under lockdown. Containment efforts simply contributed to individuals' belief of a conspiracy, and eventually resulted in several individuals attempting to reach the exclusion zone on foot over the following weeks. While individuals were amnesticized, the larger movement surrounding SCP-6000 continued, and is continuing to grow. The knowledge of SCP-6000's presence to the global community seemed to rapidly accelerate its growth. In the following hours, it expanded to nearly 6 kilometers across, with no sign of stopping. GOC tactical nuclear solutions are being considered. In addition, on January 21st, Agent Macmillan failed to appear on several Fusillade briefings and meetings. A search of his quarters at Facility 57 revealed a thaumaturgic circle drawn into the floor. Surveillance camera footage displayed him spending an hour the night beforehand crafting the circle before performing a ritual of unclear purpose. Agent Macmillan's thaumaturgic capabilities were believed to be burned out, and disappearing from his quarters at 7:55 a.m. local time. Surveillance footage from the exclusion zone showed a sudden burst of light at the same time, and a glimpse of Agent Macmillan moving through the foliage, presumably into SCP-6000. The following note was left in his quarters and in a sealed envelope, addressed to Director Moose. Sorry, Tilly. I used to spend weeks in the library shelves, perusing everything I could come across. It was otherworldly in the most literal sense of the word. I'm sure you understand the feeling. The difference is that you couldn't go in. You made the choice between the library and Foundation. When I first entered, it was just a mission. I experienced something amazing. Something well beyond what I thought was ever possible. And I thought it was a damn shame that we looked at something so magnificent and only worried about how it might hurt us. I can see now that's not the case. The librarians are only hurting the people that try to stop the expansion. I have no intention of doing that. This is the end of the story, not the one where we somehow come up with a silver bullet to fix everything. The only thing I can do now is change how I feel about it. I just want to sit in the shelves and see the false stars again. I think this is my happy ending. AM. Open file. Begin log. You knew, didn't you, how the story would end? Of course, I've been telling you that. What? I told you right at the start. This isn't that kind of story. You don't find a silver bullet to fix everything, jailer. That's not how it goes. Well, I'm not going to roll over and die. I don't know why I'm even talking to you. You sent 4 good men to their deaths. No, I didn't. No one has died, jailer. Weren't you listening to the Serpent? What did you just say? You already knew in your heart. Who else could it have been? Adam. I don't know. He abandoned the rest of us. No, he didn't. I tire of telling you things you already know. Then tell me something I don't know. Explain everything to me. I wish I could. Explaining it to you would be like, you don't scream into your book when the characters frustrate you. You can't do anything. You have to watch it play out. So, what? This is just entertainment to you? No, stories aren't always entertainment. When I communed with the Serpent in search of knowledge, knowledge was what I received, just in the form of stories. All the knowledge, every story that it could remember. The GOC's story, Adam's story, your story. And tell me how it ends. Tell me so I can know I did everything I possibly could to stop it. You already know, Moose. Denial fixes nothing. You learned it as a little girl, and you learn it now. You don't get to pick your ending. You only get to choose how you take it. So, girl was you then? Yes. Even I didn't realize until now. The memories have come back. I came to that ritual wanting to know how my story ended, and I learned how this world's story ended. Luckily for me, they were one and the same. Stories are bullshit. Stories are all there is. This one ends with two people sitting in a room, talking, and then they vanish into thin air. Sobering. In a sense, you should be flattered. Why in the world would I be flattered? You left the library on your terms, and you won't admit it to anyone, but they see it written on your face. You want to see it again. Like hell I do. It's wondrous, but everyone talks about it like paradise. It screwed me long before I screwed it. Bitterness gets you nowhere. That's true. I have work to do. Rot then. Addendum 6000.8. Ongoing containment attempts. With the unprecedented failure of the Veil Protocol and the ensuing response by NX-001, the entire Amazon basin has been quarantined and placed into Foundation GOC jurisdiction under Project Fusillade. SCP-6000 has now expanded to 13 kilometers in length, and its rate of growth has increased. At the moment, plans are being drafted for a BM-class Broken Masquerade scenario. Update to latest revision. Project Fusillade. SCP Foundation Global Occult Coalition Joint Clearance File. Passcode: Garden is the Serpent's place. Level 1, 6000 classified. Item number: SCP-6000. Apollyon. Special Containment Procedures. Containment of SCP-6000 has failed. All Foundation Fusillade personnel left on Earth should report to their site's HMCL supervisor to receive further instructions. Description: SCP-6000 is the section of the Earth that has been transformed into a section of the extra-dimensional location known as the Wanderer's Library. Currently, SCP-6000 covers the entirety of the Western Hemisphere and is increasing in size. SCP-6000's transformation began in the Amazon basin in South America and continued across the entire hemisphere in the following rates. Despite joint Foundation GOC efforts under the Project Fusillade banner to impede its progress. All population centers, Foundation, GOC, and Fusillade sites inside SCP-6000 are considered lost. Veil Protocol is to be disregarded. Currently, containment of SCP-6000 involves evacuating Fusillade personnel to designated extra-dimensional backup sites. SCP-6000 covers 58% of the Earth's surface and is actively growing. Projections indicate it will cover the entire planet within 2 and 2.5 weeks. Addendum 6000.1. Final log. The following was the final audio log recorded and broadcast from Facility 57 before it was completely subsumed into SCP-6000. While it was believed all personnel and useful anomalies had been evacuated, investigation revealed that Director Moose had never boarded any of the evacuation choppers in the chaos. After this audio's file recordings, both figures disappeared from Facility 57's biometric scanners. Seconds later, the facility was subsumed by SCP-6000. Begin excerpt. Oh, what happens now? What do you mean? We wait. What else is there to do? Nothing, I suppose. We wait. Then, what are you worried about? I'm not sure. You really shouldn't worry, you know. And why's that? Leaving this world is not as scary as it sounds. I think you're understating what's about to happen. What's about to happen then? This is what always happens. This is natural. No, to hell with this. There's nothing natural about this. The world is being eaten alive. We're sitting and watching the apocalypse, and we can't do anything about it. Do you think there's going to be anything after this? I don't believe in God, if that's what you're asking. Anyone who works at the Foundation and still believes in God has more faith than the Pope. That's not what I'm asking. What do you think is going to happen after the way covers the world? There's just going to be nothing? Of course, it's subsuming the world, replacing it. That's where you're wrong. What? SCP-6000-A lights a cigarette with her finger. I don't understand, Director. You know on a logical level that the sun is going to burn out one day. You go through every day of your life, through the motions, knowing that there is a shelf life on the universe. There is always an ending. Yeah, but those are natural. The slow, agonizing heat death of the universe, watching every star go dark one by one as they no longer find themselves capable of exploding into existence. What makes that more natural than this? This has always been the Foundation's fatal flaw, an inability to adapt and survive. That changes nothing. It changes everything, Tilda. We all live and work knowing nothing goes on forever, but we don't let knowing there is an end ruin the story for us. And here's the part that matters. There are always more stories. I don't understand. The library is all stories. Where there was once one story about a Foundation and their valiant stand down with the end of the world, there will be 1,000 million new stories and 1,000 million new worlds inside of them. The library doesn't just connect all worlds. It is all worlds. Every world a story, every story a world, and everything that matters. So, it's not out of control. This is the end of the story, and we're becoming part of the library? I suppose you could put it that way. Didn't you want to visit the library again? You seemed like you missed it. Agent Macmillan certainly did. Now come on, unlock these handcuffs. You don't want to miss the end of the world, do you? What? So, what? Nothing I or Adam or anyone could have done could have stopped it? It was pointless? Ah, the point was the same thing that it's ever been, to make new stories where there was once nothing. Be happy, Tilda. Your story is going to be remembered forever. What if I don't want new stories? The words had barely left Tilda's lips before both figures vanished from the interrogation chamber. Tilda closed her eyes as the warm light enveloped her. She opened them again. They were standing on the side of a brilliant green hill in a deep valley, while the orange glow of dusk settled. The snake woman next to her was still smoking the cigarette as if nothing had happened. Where are we? You tell me. She looked up. In the distance, she could see the contours of a city. But no city on Earth looked like this. It was gleaming white as the sunset reflected off massive panes of glass. Spiraling skyscrapers served as trellises, or snaking vines meters wide. Overhead, white machines shaped like teardrops and the size of teardrops shot through the sky. Well, we're not on Earth. Technically incorrect. It's Earth all right, but a different reality than one you're from. Better one, most would say. What's the difference? No containment. Anomalies are known to the public. Their magic has been integrated into society. Disease and suffering is largely a relic of the past. That's you know it isn't. Tilly looked at the city, glittering in the dusk. It was too far to pick out people, but there was an obvious aura of movement to it. The city wasn't just alive, it was happy. They sure seem to believe it's possible. She tore her eyes from the structures and they settled on two figures uphill. A man in a lab coat, the same as hers, and a small tabby cat sitting next to him. Tilly began trudging uphill. Stop! She looked behind her. 6000-A was looking at her as it continued in its hissing manner. This is not your story. You are just an observer here, same as I in yours. So, we're in a story? Everyone's in a story, Tilda. This one just had a happier ending. The boon companions reunited and the world was free to seek its own fate. Not bad, all things considered. She looked up at the pair. They were laughing as they exchanged an unheard conversation. Then, for a moment, the man blanched and stared at his feline companion, before relaxing and both collapsed into giggles. The empty bottles next to them explained a bit of their story. So, why? Why are we here, if I can't speak with any of them? Well, we can always go somewhere else. The island was doused with an impenetrable atmosphere. Everything was gray, crushingly so. The stormy sky was gray. The sea was all rageful gray waves crashing on a rocky gray shore. The grass crumbled to ashes beneath Tilly's boots. In the distance, the anomaly jutted above the horizon. It was some sort of power, smooth, featureless, impenetrable. It made for a stark contrast against the dreary cloud line. What is this? Nobody really knows. The island can't be reached unless you're looking for it. And the Foundation has had difficulties in investigating it. The Foundation? I don't remember anything like this ever coming across my desk. That's because it didn't. Once again, a different story. Maybe the story doesn't have a Tilda Moose. Or maybe she's still a member of the Serpent's Hand. Moose was silent. The rain came slow and light in a drizzle. In any case, no. This story and yours never intersected. Does that bother you? No, why would it? It was silent. It matched pace with her brisk walk, slithering across the brittle blades of grass. There were two men standing in front of it, dressed typical to the Foundation researchers. A gap opened in the side of the structure, and one disappeared into it. The rain continued to come down. The pair stood in the corner of the shadowy meeting hall. In the center, 13 people sat at a circular table, illuminated from above. Oh shit, is that? Yes, the council. Not your council, or even the council you're on. What? Oh yes, in some of these stories you would be on the O5 council. Difficult to believe, isn't it? Not really, honestly. Is this some sort of ghost of Christmas future nonsense, showing me what could have been? The council seemed to be voting on something. Tilly caught a few stray words, the fate of a prisoner, someone called 050, lots of yelling at someone who appeared to be 1. It was a blur. No, none of this ever could have been. These stories ran parallel to ours, you see. Now they were in a flat countryside, a rocky prairie. In the distance, simple thatch huts dotted between simple farms, and people dressed in simple linens carrying crops and tools between them. This doesn't seem so bad at all. This is Devastan, a country resulting from catastrophic containment breach of SCP-140. They seem awfully peaceful for Davites. Your view of the Deva was misinformed, to say the least. Or not yours, this Foundation's. The wind wafted over them, billowing Tilly's lab coat. Distantly she heard music on the wind, a string orchestra playing something that seemed familiar. It made her sad. For stories, these feel awfully real. Now you understand how I feel. I'm an outsider to your story, as you are to these. They floated in a dark void. What is this? 3001? Not quite so depressing. They were falling, she realized, not floating. Then they stopped, and before them, floating a titanic red sphere. Covered in some sort of fluid, it dripped down the sides, dripping, dripping. It glowed with the same eerie red light, casting the shadow of the young woman in MTF gear standing in front of it. The understanding that you can't change what's about to happen to these people, but that there's always something to move on to. No? Yeah. They remained like that for some time, jumping from story to story. A cavern underground with a demon hanging from a tree. Another tree, this time a giant sequoia in California's redwood forests. A forest clearing in Cascadia as it poured rain, turning the ground to mud. Carnegie Hall, its interior turned into a setting of an epic nautical play. Pillars of purple in the Amazon, and a window in a cell in Site 17. Countless, countless others. All that deserve to be remembered. You understand now, don't you? Yeah. Then let's go. 6000-A let the cigarette stub fall to the ground. Tilda squashed it with her boot, and then they left. You think people will read about us? SCP-6000-A smiled a snake-like laugh and waggled a finger at her through its handcuffs. Director, we've been over this. You don't get to pick the ending of the story. She looked down. But you do get to pick how you decide to take it. You can sit down and weep that the old stories you grew to love are gone, or you can smile and move on to the next shelf. She looked back up. They weren't in holding cell B918 anymore. They were standing between two gargantuan bookshelves that seemed to go on forever, before suddenly diverging into more bookshelves. Every space was filled with the spine of a different book, massive tomes to paper-thin leaflets. There were people of all shapes and sizes in robes sitting here and there, perusing the collection. The sky was a black void dotted with constellations. She could smell the scent of fresh paper. Welcome home, jailer. SCP-6000-A was gone. In its place was a young Asian woman, maybe 5 feet tall, with the tattoo of a snake wrapped around a wrist on her face. She found her voice again. Now, I have been telling you, the library is the end of your story, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Because you get to move on to the next story. She gestured around her, and a few of the other patrons looked up. A few shrugged off their hoods. Madam, and Vasquez, and Kurtz, and Bardem, and Flores too. She even thought she saw some of the O5s in the crowd. The end isn't death, Tilly. You were stubbornly clinging to that idea for so long. There'll be new stories, more worlds, with the Foundation, with me, everything we fought for, everything we did, there already are, so she reached over and pulled out a book with a soft gray cover. The font was embossed with SCP-6000 in ornate lettering. Get to reading. She looked around at the impossibly huge library. In the distance, she spotted the same giant insect that had greeted her when the fire team first went in. Waved a pincer at her. I think this is it. This is what? My happy ending.